Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophets Speak. Today we continue our study of the second book of Chronicles, that is Divrei Hayamim Bet. We are up to chapter 6, that is Perek Vav, and we are about to read today the version of Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon's speech to the people at the dedication of the first temple, of the holy temple that Solomon had just completed building in the honor of God. This speech is truly remarkable, and it is a testament to what exactly Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, had in mind, and what lesson he wanted the people to teach, and what he had in mind as the purpose and point of the Beit HaMikdash. And actually, this really is going to be an exposition of the purpose and point of ethical monotheism. I know that's a modern term and somewhat anachronistic, placing that on Shlomo, but the idea, there's several ideas that I want you to look out for. Number one, the understanding of God as is a very, very different type of God as the other gods with small g's were in those days. The understanding of God as being beyond human comprehension. The understanding of God as being a creator of everything. So there's no point or place to other gods, etc. The understanding that God doesn't need a house. Even though right now Solomon had just expended all this effort and energy and wealth to build this beautiful edifice, he wanted to make sure that people understood that this house wasn't for God. It was a place for people to come to in order to encounter God, and in order to experience the relationship. But the bottom line is that there's a creator who created the world, created everything. He's beyond our comprehension. This house is a place for us to relate to him, to demonstrate that we honor and respect him. And then the key thing is, what does he want from us? And the idea is that he wants from us to go in his ways, to behave. He wants us to act according to the rules. The idea that because there's a creator who created the world for a purpose, and therefore it is incumbent upon us to do as we are supposed to do, to act in the ways that we are supposed to act, and that then if we do our part, which is act in the ways that he asked us to act, he will do his part and ensure and guarantee stability and abundance in the world that we live. So now that I know I laid down that introduction, let's read the beautiful words of King Solomon himself, and let's really listen to what he's saying. Vayomar, this is verse 14, chapter 6 of the second book of Chronicles. Vayomar, and Shlomo said, he was just described in the last verse. He was standing on a tall platform in front of all of the people in the Azara, in the place of congregation, in the newly just built temple, and he prostrated himself on his knees. I don't know if prostrate is the right word, or kneeled in front of the people, raised his arms to heaven, and faced toward the Beit HaMikdash, and and here he says this following speech: Adonai Elohei Yisrael. He uses God's name, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, or the tetragrammation, right? And he addresses him, the God, the Lord, the God of Israel. Ein kamocha Elohim. There is no one like you, God. Bashamayim uvaretz, in the heavens and the earth. In other words, as a God, you are different. You're a completely different concept than the other gods that are being worshipped around the world. In the entire heaven and the earth, there is nothing like you. In other words, in the heaven and the earth, we cannot find anything that compares to you. And what makes you unique and special to us? Shomer habrit v'hachesed, because you maintain the covenant and the kindness, la'avodecha, to those who serve you, to your servants. And how do you serve God? Ha'hochim lefanecha b'chol libam. Those who walk before you, in other words, walk in your ways, wholeheartedly walk in front of you. Now, this is remarkable, right? He didn't say, bring sacrifices to this house. He didn't say, do the service in this house in order to get favor from God. But rather, he said, with all of your heart, You should walk before God all the time, your entire life. And in that sense, God will keep his covenant. What's this covenant? Asher shamarta li abdecha David avi. I know because you kept this promise to my father David. Es asher dibartalo, that which you told him. You promised him that if you steadfastly follow my ways, I will support you. I will make you the king. I will make your son the king, and I will enable you to rule the people and lead the people in the right direction. Vatidaber beficha, you spoke with your mouth. Uviyodcha milesa kayom hazeh. And literally, yodcha milesa literally translates to you filled your hands, but it's a term, biblical term, which means, and you successfully or completely completed the task as we see today. You made the promise that we would merit this day. We would have the kingdom would be at peace, our enemies would be subdued, our wealth would be increased so that we can build and this country and this nation and ultimately build this temple. The Atah, and now Adonai Elohei Israel, God, the Lord of Israel, Shimar li abdecha David avi. Please, God, um, keep that promise that you made to David, my father. He says, that which you spoke to him, which is lo yikares l'cha'ish milefonai, that from there will never be cut off from you. In other words, from your line, from your descendants, a man in front of me, Yosheva Kisei Yisrael, that would be sitting upon the throne of Israel. Rock, however, this promise is only true im yishmeru bonecha estarkam, if your children keep their ways. Now, this is the crucial here because God has said, what is the test to see if a king of David's line would always be on the throne? If they lead the people in such a way that the people keep their ways, to go according to my teachings, just like you went before me. In other words, if you're not just a leader yourself, but you lead the people in the right direction, then that will be a polity, that will be a nation, that will be a people that I will support, and I will make sure that your descendants will remain on that throne. But if they lead in such a way that this is not what happens, right? That the people go astray, then the kingdom will not continue. And now Adonai Israel, God the Lord of Israel, Ye Amen Devarcha, let your words be proven true. Asher dibarta le'abduchal David, that which you spoke to your servant David. Ki ha'umnam yeshev Elohim es ha'adam ala aretz. And this is a very important verse here because is it even true at all that God lives on the earth? Right? Hine shamayim u'shmei hashamayim lo yichalkelucha. God doesn't even live in the heavens and the heavens above the heavens, right? That God is beyond the seeable universe. God is outside of what we can comprehend, us being in this universe. So certainly this house, this little house here that I built has nothing, it's not a place for you. We didn't give anything to you, right? I'm not asking you for the promise because we're giving you this. Remember, this was the concept of worship in the entire world up to this point, right? Everywhere else was you give, you sacrifice, you bring to God, right? And then God, and you get something back from him. And Shlomo is reiterating and emphasizing this concept, this idea, which is the foundational idea of monotheism, right? And that is that this little house, we're not giving anything to you, God. Yeah, sure. For us humans, this was a monumental effort. This took a tremendous amount of wealth and skill and work, etc. But for you, this is nothing. The heavens above the heavens aren't enough to contain you. Ufanisa, however, nonetheless, despite the fact that we can give nothing to you, and this house that we built is nothing before you, please nonetheless turn al tfilat abducha, turn and listen to the prayers of your servant, bial tchinaso, and that which he supplicates, Adonai Elohai, the Lord my God. Lishmoa el arina to listen to the rina is usually translated as song. In this context, it means the crying of prayer, the song of prayer, bi'alatila, and the prayer asher abducha, that your servant mispalel ufanecha, is now praying before you. So this is those words, Lishmoa el harina v'el atfila. Obviously, those that are familiar with the Jewish liturgy, these words are often show up in many of the poems in the liturgy of the Siddur of the Jewish prayer book, and many times during the year. Lihiyose nacha pituchos. And how do you listen? I want, please God, that your eyes should be open el habayis hazeh, to this house, yomam v'loyla, day and night. I want to point out, right? Why is he saying, look at this house? Because when people come to this house and pour their hearts out in prayer, they make promises. Yes, I will be better. I will do better. I will live better. But then, as we know, we go back to our lives and we're not really perfect. We asking God to look to us and judge us based on our deepest intentions and our deepest desires, which in most cases, for most human beings, is to be a better person. And that is on its highest display when we are gathered together, all different kinds of people from all across the world. And you'll see soon how Shlomo envisioned this as a place for the entire world, not just the people of Israel, will stand together before God and dedicate themselves to living a better life. So look at this house, Yomam Valayla, day and night, El Hamakom Asher Amarta, to the place that you said, Lasum Shimcha Sham. We didn't decide to make this the place. You told us to build this house. And Lishma al Atfila, so that you should listen to the prayers, Asher Yispalel Avducha El Hamakom Azeh, that your servant, in other words, your servant now, in other words, me, Solomon, and your servant whenever in the future comes and prays in this place. Vishamata, and you should hear el tachanune abdecha, to the supplications of your servant V'amcha Yisrael, and your nation Israel. Asher yispalalu el hamakom hazeh, that they will pray to this place. Or that to this place makes us think of towards this place. To this place gives us the sense that Shlomo is telling us that even when one is not physically in this location, one should pray towards this location, with this location in mind. The idea of this gathering place for all of the people should be what we have in mind, our focus for all of our prayer, which is why, of course, in the Jewish tradition, we pray towards Jerusalem, no matter where we are around the world. That's the direction which we face. Ashay Tishma, and then you will listen to me, Makom Shivtcha min Hashemayim, from the place where you reside, from the heavens, Vishamata Visalachta. Remember, he said before that God doesn't even reside in the heavens, but we still use this term as a metaphor of understanding God in a place where we are not, right? And you will listen, Visalachta, and you will give forgiveness to our ways. So this kind of emphasizes the point I was making before. Look at us the way we are here when we are coming here to pray and ask for forgiveness. Don't look at us in the way when we act when we're not necessarily here and we're not necessarily focused on the right things, and we often err and we often go on the wrong path. As he continues in verse 22, because if people do sin to one another, and they and they and they and they curse each other, right? And that and that curse will come before you in this house, right? Those arguments between one person and another, and when such things occur, you, God, should listen from the heavens, right? In other words, a person gets into an argument, and one person makes a promise, or makes a shvua, makes an oath to the other one. You, God, know, right, the justice. You know who's telling the truth and who's not. Now, what does this mean? What is this referring to? So you should give judgment from here, from this place. Listen, it's so important to understand this, because one would think that when he's building this building with the altars and the sacrifices and the incense and the menorah and the showbread and all of this ritual, that one would think that you come to this house and you perform these rituals but no, the first thing he discusses, why do people come? Because of arguments between one and another, making false oaths one to another, interpersonal violence and acrimony, and they come here for peace, for judgment, which hints to us what we know, that the Sanhedrin, the highest court of the land, sat in the Beit Hamikdash, in the temple, right? This is the place where people come in order to adjudicate their disagreements and go out in peace. So God, please, do what you can do, only you can do, and judge your servants. Make sure that true justice is given in this place, so that the evil person will have, literally this means his way will be upon his head, meaning that he will get what he deserves. And the righteous one in the fight should be justified. So that he should be rewarded for his righteousness. And then he continues. So the first purpose is to be a place where people come together for justice. I just think about this, what Shlomo is saying, the purpose of the temple. It is not a place to come and bring sacrifices and do rituals, even though that seems on the surface to be what it is. I mean, yes, it is a place to do that, but the purpose of it is to come for justice, for people to seek peace between each other. And if your nation Israel is under threat, lifnei oyev, right, from an enemy, why? Because they sin to you. All right. In other words, if they get struck in war, if they're losing in battle, if they're under siege, etc. And why would that happen? Because they have sinned to you. In other words, the reason why people will have strife, the reason why the people will suffer, and this is again one of the central themes of the Bible, if not the central theme, right? It is our behavior, it is our actions that result in our suffering, right? When we do not act properly towards each other and towards others, that is what brings upon us strife and fights and violence and war. The shavu, and what will they do when they come? When this happens, when they're suffering under threat from an enemy, from a violent enemy, they will come the hodu es shemecha, and they will give praise to your name, right? The hispalalu, and they will pray, v'yitchananu, and they will supplicate lifanecha b'vayis in this house. V'ata tishma min hashamayim, and what should your response be? Don't look at the way they behaved, what led to this disaster, and say you deserve it, but rather come to this house, and you should listen from your place in heaven, v'solachta, and forgive l'chatas amcha Yisrael, forgive the sins of your nation Israel, v'hashev osam el ha'adama, and return them to the land which was taken away by the enemy, asher nasata lehem l'avosem, that land that you have given to them and to their forefathers. And not only does such disasters come as a result of our behavior, but beheyatzar hashamayim, when the heavens close up, below matar, and there is no rain, and famine and results because of drought. Why? Because the people have sinned to you. They do not have what to eat because they are not living properly. They are sinning. Also, they will come to this place for give praise to your name. From their sins they will repent, because you have sa'anim, you would mean here you have punished them or you have made them suffer, right? And what should your response be? Your response should be that you should listen from heaven, v'solachta, and give forgiveness l'chatas avadecha, to the sins of your servants, v'hamcha Yisrael, and your nation Israel, ki torem el haderech hatova asher yelchu ba, because you will teach them, and you have taught them to go on the proper good path, the path that they should go upon. V'nosata motar al artzecha, and you will give rain to your land, asher nosata li'amcha l'nachla, that land which you give to your nation to inherit. And ra'av ki yeh ba'aretz, if there is famine in the land, dever ki yeh, if there is a plague, Shidafon v'yerakon, if there is a blight, on the crops, the v'yerakon, or is the growth of like a fungus and mold, which is destroying the plants, or arbe, or locust, the chasil, or chasil, or other bugs, caterpillars, presumably, that consume the crops. Kia, when any of these things happen, or if any one of our enemies is attacking and causing oppression in any of the lands which we have settled, kol nega v'chol machla, any kind of plague or any kind of disease, kol tefillah, kol tchina, any kind of prayer, any kind of supplication, asher yeh l'chol ha'adam, which will be for any human being, u'l'chol amcha Yisrael, and all of the nation Israel. And here, Shlomo begins to focus outside of the land of Israel. Any human being in this world and your nation, asher yedu ish nigol machavo, because each person knows what he himself is suffering from, the plagues and pains that he himself is suffering from. Every human being, all right, and here he's also focusing finally on the individual, and on the entire population of the world. And he should raise his hands again towards this house. And you, Tishma min hashamayim, you should hear from the heavens, Machon shiftecha, the place where you live, right? The place where you reside, that is beyond us. V'solachta, and you will give forgiveness. V'nasata leish k'chol d'rachav, and you will give to each person what he deserves according to his ways, right? Again, justice according to his ways, asher tedas livavo, because you know his heart. Again, an idea of monotheism, that God knows our intentions, God knows our thoughts, God knows our, he looks at our behavior, but he also knows and understands what we're trying to do. Because only you know and fully understand what is going on inside the hearts of all human beings. He chooses specifically to discuss all human beings. God knows and understands our psychology. We ourselves, with no matter how much research we have into psychology and psychiatry and neurology of the brain, we still only know a tiny, tiny drop about how our brain functions and what's going on inside of our souls. But God knows. In order that the people should have awe and revere you, so that they should go in your ways. What's the purpose of the relationship with God? Not so that you should achieve some sort of spiritual bliss, but the purpose is in order that people should go in your ways. Kol hayamim, all of the days, asher heim chayim al pnei adama, all the time that we are living on this land, that you've given to our forefathers. And then Shlomo goes ahead in the next verse and focuses on all people of the world. V'gam el hanachri, and also to the stranger, the foreigner, who is not a member of this nation, Israel. And he comes from a faraway land, because he has heard about your great name, and your powerful hand, meaning your powerful leadership, and your outstretched arm, and meaning because he has heard that you want to bring everyone in underneath your wings, right? And they will also come, and they will also pray in this house. This is so important because the ultimate goal from the moment it was established of this building was to bring peace, to bring everyone together. How sad is it that that site today has become a source of strife for people to argue with one another, as opposed to a place where we can all come together, pray together, and worship together. Instead, over the centuries, it became a place where each group that fights to take it over declares that only our way is the way, but not your way. If we are all focusing on loleches bidrachav, in going in his ways, there's not a single word here about belief, that you have to believe this, or you have to believe that, or you have to believe my way or your way. Not a single word. In fact, you barely find a single word of that in the words of the prophets at all. It's, what is it? It's always loleches bidrachav, to live a just and righteous life, go in the ways of God. If you do that and you come here, we should all be together on this. V'ato tishma min hashamayim, and you, please, God, listen from heaven, from the place where you reside, v'asisa, and do kechol asher yikra elecha hanochri, and do everything that foreigner, that Gentile, the non-Jew, the person that came from the faraway land, do as he calls upon you. Leman, why? Because the ultimate goal of this place is Leman yedu chol amei haaretz. The point of this is so that all of the nations of the world should know Eshemecha, your name. Uliyira oscha, they should all have offer you Ke'amcha Yisrael, just like your nation Israel. That's the point. V'ladas, and that they should know and understand and appreciate that it is your name that is called, in other words, that is attached to this house that I have built. And when your nation, your people have to unfortunately go out to war against its enemies, on the path which you send them, because sometimes, unfortunately, evil comes up and we have to fight. They should pray to you through the path of this city. Another understanding that it wouldn't necessarily be practical for the entire army to come to the temple to pray before they go out to war if the war is in a different place. So, but they should always pray towards the city. And this house that I have built in the honor of your name. And you should hear from heaven at tfilatam, their prayers, and their supplications, and you will do their justice, their just cause. You'll support their just cause. And when people sin against you, because we know that every human being sins, there's no person that doesn't have flaws. And you are upset with them, and you are angry with them, and you make them suffer, you give them over to their enemy. And they get captured, and their captors capture them El Eretz Rechoka, and they bring them to a faraway place, O Krovo, or they bring them to their place which may be close. And when they will keep it in their hearts. Remember, this is being written right at the beginning of the Second Temple time when people have returned from those faraway places from Babylon. But even when they're out there in those places, when the people are scattered across the earth, as the Jewish people have been throughout the centuries, right? In those places, they should think in their hearts, in those places to where they have been taken, places where they have been sent as captives, v'shavu, and they will return to you, v'eschanu elecha, and supplicate towards you, God, b'eretz shivyam, in those lands of their captivity, lamar. Shlomo is anticipating a time. This house, even when this house no longer exists, will always have significance to the people. Because why? Because no matter where they are scattered because of war and because of exile, it will live on in their hearts, and they will still look to this place. And what will we say? Chatanu ha'avinu v'rashanu. We have sinned, we have acted in bad ways, and we have done evil. Right? Chatasi, avisi, pashati, these are words that, of course, have made it into the liturgy. The liturgy, especially of the times of Yom Kippur, the days of repentance. And they will return to you with all of their hearts and all of their souls. The Eretz Shivyam, in the place where they have been captured at Shashavu, where their captors had brought them. But what will they pray? They will pray towards their land, towards this land of Israel, this land, the city of Jerusalem, this Temple Mount, right? That you gave to their forefathers, and the city which you have chosen, and the house that I have built for you in your name. And you will hear from heavens, from the place where you reside, at tfilatam, their prayers, v'tchinotehem, and their supplications, and you will do justice for them, and you will forgive the nation that has sinned to you. Ata Elohai, now God, let your eyes be open. Right? The idea of when God hides his face from us, that's when we are suffering. But when God looks and watches us, that's when we expect his kindness and his love. And make sure your ears are listening to the prayer of this place that is taking place here. And this we're about to conclude this prayer. So now, go, God, to your resting place. Ata, you, va'aronu zecha, and the ark, which represents your strength. Kohanecha, your Kohanim, your priests. Adonai Elohim, Yilbeshu Teshua. The Lord our God, right? You are clothed in redemption. Teshua is salvation, right? V'chasidecha yismachu batov, and those who are your chasidim, those who are loyal to you, will be happy with good. Adonai Elohim, God, Lord our God, al tashev pnei Mashiachecha. Do not reject the one who is anointed for you. This is one of the very few places in Tanakh where the word Mashiach, which is translates into English often as Messiah, right? Do not reject the face of your Messiah. In other words, and what does that mean? The one who is anointed, which is a reference to, of course, Shlomo, Solomon himself, who was anointed as king. So do not reject me, is what he's saying, right? But he's representing himself as the one who was anointed for God. And remember the kindnesses of David, your servant. Remember, and David, of course, also who had been anointed as king. So this concludes the prayer, this remarkable prayer of David, of Solomon at the dedication of the Beit HaMikdash. And it's remarkable for many reasons. But remember, I think I want to just point out and reiterate just one thing, and that is there isn't a single word here about the service, the sacrifices, anything, any of the services that took place, any of the rituals that took place. Not a single word. It was all about the meaning of this place and its relationship between human beings and God, the relationship between an ethical God who wants us to behave in a certain way, and how the focal point of this house will serve to bring that about, and how that and the ultimate purpose in bringing peace to the entire world, not just the people of Israel. Thank you so much. I know this was a little bit long, but it was also a beautiful one. Thank you so much for studying chapter 6 together with me of the second book of Chronicles. We will look forward to studying chapter 7 and the rest of this wonderful book of Chronicles together. Have a wonderful and beautiful day.